My name is Anushka Sharma. I'm the founder of Naaut, a space tech and innovation consultancy. I've been involved with CogX from day one. It's lovely to be back and great to see so many wonderful friends and new connections. This panel over the next 30 minutes is on future visions, trends in robotics, artificial intelligence, automation and supply chains. Joining me today, we have Tim Lawrence, who is the Digital Supply Chain Director at Digital Catapult, and Amolak Badesha, who's the CEO of Orbital Composites. I guess we're just going to go straight in and kick off. So many of you guys in the audience are key decision makers in today's fast evolving business landscape. We're acutely aware that advancements in robotics and AI are more than just technical milestones. They herald transformative shifts in how businesses operate, compete, and deliver value. In this discussion today, our panelists will dive into the current trajectory of these technologies and forecast their impact on our industries. We'll examine how AI and automation are poised to redefine operational efficiencies, risk management, and strategic advantage. We'll delve into the tangible impacts on our global supply chains, offering insights into how executives and leaders like yourselves can leverage these shifts to drive growth and innovation. To achieve market leadership, we need to hear from experienced leaders who are working at the cutting edge on this curve. And so this session is going to equip you with a lot of case studies and information to help you with insights and perspectives essential for steering your organizations into hopefully a very promising and positive future. So let's kick off with some opening statements. I've asked both Tim and Amolak to talk about this golden age of robotics that we're in at the moment, and really think about the next 5 years and how intelligent robotics will become, and what are some of the trends that we'll see. So Tim, I'll come to you first. Welcome to CogX.
Brilliant, thanks Anushka, really good to be here. So so maybe just a little bit more about what I do, why I believe that robotics, AI, and digital technologies are really the future. So I work exclusively in supply chains. I work in an organization called the Digital Catapult, where we really try and take advanced digital technologies and link those and help industries adopt those digital technologies. So we're really working in that interface between industry and innovation and technology startups and organizations along that lines. The program I run is a 25 million Innovate UK funded program called Digital Supply Chain Hub, where we're really looking at advanced digital technologies and innovations that will drive the future of digital supply chains, making them more resilient, efficient, and sustainable. And robotics and AI are a critical part of that agenda. If you look back a few years, then robotics is nothing new. It's been around for quite a while. If you look in the logistics space, AGVs and other robotic solutions were around 10, 15 years ago. But what's really changed since the e-commerce has come along, and online shopping, and the need to have much more precision around delivery and the last mile delivery aspect, is that technologies have rapidly developed and been more deployed. So if you look at solutions like Ocado, Amazon, AutoStore, these solutions are really focused on robotics to pick, and to optimize the logistics operations around the organization. And then you've got other solutions which are starting to really look at that challenging area of last mile logistics, where we're starting to see, there's a lot of hype about drones and drone technology. The real thing that's coming, as we see it, is these delivery carts and capabilities to really aid that last mile delivery, whether that be autonomous vehicles, whether that be more simple delivery carts for food solutions or things like that. And then the other big thing that's coming is the ability for these robots to become more intelligent, to bring in the AI solutions that will allow them to learn and develop and become more intelligent about what they're doing in relation to the warehouse optimization that needs to happen, and also the last mile logistics and other aspects around that. So we think there's a huge change and transition happening, and that's going to happen over the next 4 or 5 years. It's not going to be a sort of long-term thing. And a little bit later, I'll talk a little bit more broadly about how the supply chain is being challenged and addressed by some of these technologies and what we're doing. But hopefully that gives a bit of an overview in relation to what's happening in the warehousing and logistics space and some of the robotics technologies that we're starting to see come through. And we can pick up on those in a little bit more detail later.
Thank you, Tim. Amolak, over to you. And I think we're just about to roll a videotape. So roll VT.
Yep. All right. So my name is Amolak. I'm co-founder and CEO at a deep tech startup, Orbital Composites. And our mission is to build robotic gigafactories both on Earth and in space. And the goal of the company is to really go after global scale solutions when it comes to broadband connectivity anywhere in the world, when it comes to clean energy, as well as global transportation. And the important thing here is that for us, robotics is at the heart of everything. And there's one side of robotics which gets a lot of attention, which is the, as Tim talked about, the last mile delivery or the drone technology or autonomous meal delivery services and so on. And then there's the other side, which is advanced manufacturing, this industrial segment. And I think there's tremendous opportunity in that space for robotics. So taking traditional car manufacturing robots, but making them incredibly more intelligent so you can actually start manufacturing very large structures autonomously or on-site. As an example, if you look at wind turbine blades, they're massive now. For offshore wind, they could be larger than a football field. And transporting them is a huge problem. So if you start thinking about building a factory on-site, which is autonomous with robotics, it can be a game changer. And so there's many examples like this. And in-space manufacturing actually represents the ultimate challenge, where the only way is autonomy. Astronauts are actually really expensive, $500,000 per hour. So that's not scalable. So you have to start with autonomy as a goal. And with that challenge, you actually end up solving a lot of technical challenges that are very relevant for terrestrial applications. So we're dual use terrestrial in space. And in terms of the broader adoption of robotics and really merging of robotics with AI really represents incredible opportunity because robotics are not new. They've been around for a long time for just motion automation. What's really changed is availability of a lot of compute and sensors at very low cost, which allows you to collect a tremendous amount of data. And now, with the advent of large learning models, you are able to start make sense of large amounts of data in an efficient manner. So as you start stacking all these technologies together, there are some really incredible opportunities to fix our supply chain issues, bring manufacturing back to UK or US or Western countries in general, and build more robustness, local sort of manufacturing.
It's fascinating. So on the 5-year timeline, how close are we into in-space manufacturing? Do you see that in the next 5 years?
Good question. So there is a roadmap to get to that. The first thing is we don't even have the right facilities for in-space manufacturing. The International Space Station is going away, and there's a huge wave of new commercial space stations. So we're working with the key players on that front and looking to develop. So in the next 5 years, the first step will be building what we call ISAM laboratory. ISAM stands for In-Space Service Assembly and Manufacturing. And from that, the following 5 to 10 years is when we start converting those ideas into factories, space factories. There's a lot of hype and noise around this topic, but again, we're talking about building very large structures in space. And you even have the opportunity to offload a lot of heavy industries that create a lot of pollution into space over time.
It's really interesting, like the technical advancements that you've both touched upon. So computer vision, robotics, machine learning, sensor technology, material science, they're all kind of leading us to this tipping point where we're at now. So, you know, when it comes to examples that we can give the audience around supply chain resilience and geopolitical factors, what are the things that we should be mindful of now that we're looking to scale robotics, AI, automation into our industries?
Yeah, no, thanks. It's a great question. I mean, one of the key things is that if you think about supply chains over the last few years, they've become heavily stressed, yeah? And some of that stress has been around the fact that supply chains have been quite distant. So, you know, we outsourced a lot of manufacturing to Asia and to other locations across the globe and relied on imports of that manufacturing into the UK. But it was clear from COVID and post-COVID and now the new shocks around the Ukraine war and other things that those supply chains are no longer fit for purpose, yeah? They're no longer capable. So you've either then got to adopt automation or digital technologies to change the nature of those supply chains. And as was mentioned, you know, the ability to bring manufacturing closer to home, either in the UK or in region or in Europe, to enable a more resilient supply chain, but also to have early warnings of problems. So a good example is we're working with a couple of digital technology startup organizations that are looking at modeling the resilience of supply chains. Yeah, first of all, understanding who the players are in the supply chain through AI and machine learning and natural language processing to find out who, because sometimes you don't know who is the raw material supplier of your finished product, yeah? Right the way through the supply chain. And then we're working with other tech companies to look at how you assess and manage the risks of those things by really understanding, using social listening and other technologies where those problems are in your supply chain and how to address them. So that's probably one example of, you know, understanding some of this. Bringing it closer to home and logistics, we're also working with a range of organizations to develop a logistics platform for taking trucks off the road and reducing the number of journeys that vehicles have to take, improving their CO2 footprint and reduce the impact of you know, road congestion and other things. And that's all about IoT. It's all about understanding how full a truck is. And if you don't realize on today's roads, most trucks run only half full. So we're wasting something like 50% of the capacity of the UK haulage fleet because we just don't optimize the way routes work. So this is a combination of using technologies to understand what's in a truck and where a truck is, and then collaborating between competing organizations like a DHL and FedEx working together to fundamentally change the way that you deliver to customers and consumers. And so we're working on these sorts of platforms, digital platforms, to address these topics.
Yeah, I think optimization is really key. I've lost my teeth, sorry. And it's really critical, particularly when we're thinking about net zero, our environment, and really thinking about the wider implications. Amolak, did you have anything you'd like to add as well?
Yeah, so I think, when we think about reshoring manufacturing, there's an opportunity to start with a clean slate. The wave of offshoring happened because a lot of the original manufacturing jobs have been very labor intensive, and so for cost cutting, people chase that offshore. So to bring those type of jobs back, automation is really the only way. And in fact, we do not have enough people that can support the level of opportunity that's coming back. So automation has to be the way. And then, and I'll give an example. So in Europe, the robotics, there's a city in Denmark, Odense, called the Robotics City. A city of only 200,000 people, but one of the world leading experts in robotics. I bring this example up because it reminds me the first time I went to Denmark, and there was very few people, and I didn't realize how small the country is. It's only like 4 or 5 million people. There's very few people, but everything is just running very fluently. The lawns are mowed, everything is on autopilot, right? And I was really, that first visit really impressed on me, and the more I looked into it, the country automated its way out because they just don't have enough people. And on top of that, they have extreme weather, so they don't want to work, 6 to 7 months, right? When it gets pretty bad out there. So automation was their way. But the interesting thing is they're exporting that knowledge and technology to the rest of the world. So now, if you look at UK or Europe or US, we have many more people. So there's tremendous potential to use these new technologies to build self-resiliency and local manufacturing. The other key thing is, and this is, the door is opening with these new AI technologies, is how do you build a factory that can make many products? So in the old way, if something has to be done by hand, you have very custom production lines, and you have to train people to do exactly that thing. The beauty about robotics is you can, because it's digital, you can reprogram the robot to do this, that, or that, and you can keep switching back and forth very rapidly with these new technologies. So you can build very efficient factories that are multi-purpose, multi-products, and so one product may not be profitable enough, but if you can make 5 different kinds, all of a sudden it gets very interesting. There's just tremendous opportunity here.
I'm a big believer in humans in the loop. It's great that we're dependent on new technology, but I think we very much need to keep society involved in that. And so seeing how the technology is keeping people, hopefully training them resiliently for the future labor markets, because one of the things we're starting to see this increase in anxiety around roles and jobs of the future, and people potentially losing their position within an industry perhaps. We're coming up to the last 10 minutes. Time is going very quickly. So I'm going to move on to our last section that we wanted to discuss. And it's about how AI research is influencing the development of robotics and automation supply chain. When we hear about Amazon warehouses and Ocado and so on and so forth, what does a future warehouse look like? Whether it's micro, in situ to a local community, and really looking far into the future, what would a sophisticated warehouse in 20 years perhaps look like? Let's really take it to the future.
Yeah, well, I think what's interesting in a lot of this is actually, as we've alluded to already, the intelligence is not so much in the robots, yeah, but in the systems that sit behind them and the ability to learn and develop from the, from the understanding of the types of consumer demand and supply and how it's changing and what's happening. So, if you look at Ocados and the Amazon of this world and others, they're not interested so much in the physical robots, but they're much more interested in the systems that run warehouses and the understanding of how machine learning and AI can make those much more intelligent and sophisticated and important. And I suppose a lot of people set this vision of the dark warehouse, with no people in it, with just, robots moving around, supported by a control room with guys just sitting in white coats in the corner. I'm not sure the reality of what we have in the current network of warehouses across the UK and other brownfield assets are going to make that a reality very quickly. Maybe in one or two greenfield contexts it may be the case. But what we are seeing more and more of is the ability for robots to adapt to current environments with the intelligence and automation that goes with them to build on that. So I think the future is going to be quite mixed. I mean, what is clear, there's going to be a move away from physical manual type roles to more roles where we need people to be able to be on top of the AI, machine learning algorithms and other things they're developing and how that's building and robotics. So there's going to be a shift in skills and capability, which is going to cause some disruption over time as we move through that. But I don't think we should be too apocalyptic about the overall way that it's going to work out in the future. I mean, we certainly see the need. And I suppose the other dimension in supply chain terms is this ability to understand the end-to-end and create digital twins and intelligence across the supply chain so that you don't just hold inventory in a warehouse, you can hold it at various points, you know what it is, where it is, how it's working, and then you can adapt and evolve very quickly to a new demand or a new challenge in supply. So I think it's going to become these intelligent end-to-end supply chains, which is the vision I see, where robotics are part of that journey, but really it's about people working across that, understanding how it delivers from really the raw material through to the consumer in a sustainable, more efficient way, and one where we're confident we're going to get our tomatoes on a Friday at 5 o'clock when we want them, yeah? So that's sort of how I see it, yeah? I'm sure there's different views of lovely dark warehouses all over the place, but I don't quite see it's going to work out like that in the near to medium term future.
Yeah. Amolak, you're doing so much on the additive manufacturing side. There's so many insights you could share for our in-space futures, but we'd love to hear your thoughts on the next 20 years.
Yeah, so I think there's a narrow view of just thinking about automation for cost cutting, which is, I don't think it should be the only focus. In fact, we'll miss a lot of opportunity if we only think about cost cutting. You don't want to, think about human replacement. It's human augmentation, right? How do we make ourselves better and more efficient? So I think, there's just tremendous potential there to think beyond cost cutting. And how do we actually improve things beyond what's possible? So going back to the warehousing supply chain issues, a lot of the last mile has actually been squeezed pretty hard already. But there's still a lot of opportunity if you step back in mid-mile logistics and backwards, which are much tougher problems, actually, because you're back into the physical world of dealing with actual physical assets. And there's a good example of that. There's a company called Reliable Robotics, which has built an autopilot for a cargo aircraft to accelerate mid-mile logistics. But there's a lot of opportunity there. But what I see is, as you move forward, these warehouses are getting so large, but you've got like thousands of trucks and ships and things moving stuff around. But you can eliminate a lot of that if you start making those things locally. And this is where additive manufacturing and other technologies, you can start producing, again, going back to that concept of the factory can make many things. And these new type of factories that are efficient can produce a large variety of things locally. So you can dramatically simplify your logistics like that. And so I expect that to continue to happen as with pandemic, we realized that this is actually a real problem. But same thing happens in contested times. You need to learn how to become self-sufficient and make things. Beyond that, I still believe, we have basic things that are not solved. In a city, I would expect, my phone to be working at 5G speeds. It does not. So why not? Energy, right? Energy is going to continue to be used more and more. So we need, again, more sustainable sources of energy. Transportation, electrification is happening, but there's many more things beyond that. Ships actually are one of the worst polluters, and then trucks are next, right? So, but that's the supply chain we rely on today. So, and all of this requires, again, clean slate design, throw away, and look at how can we start with a clean slate. And that's what I mean. There's the robotics and AI is at the heart of all of this because these are cross-cutting platforms that service all of these different verticals that are pretty large.
I think that's what's so interesting about bringing you both together because we've got the digital supply side of things, and we've got the manufacturing and future manufacturing with the whole robotics and automation in the mix. This is what we need together. So in the last minute or so, what strategic advice would you give our audience of business leaders on what they should invest in? Is it talent? Is it the technology? Is it the solution? Is it learning the supply chain? Something else? What should people be focusing on in the next year and a half, 2 years?
From my perspective, I think obviously you should invest in the technology. But actually the technology is only a small part of the overall solution. And the big thing we've noticed in end-to-end supply chains is transforming the way you collaborate with organizations in your network, thinking very differently about how you work with your suppliers and your customers to make huge differences. For example, we're working in the food supply chain where waste is something like 30 to 40% of the things that are grown don't ever get to a consumer to eat. And so if you look at linking up retailers with suppliers and others through the supply chain, you can save some 30% of that waste just by working differently together with the right digital technologies. Yeah. And so for me, there's lots of things we can do to transform what we're trying to do by collaborating more effectively across the supply chain.
Thank you.
I would add to everybody in the room, do not be afraid, jump right in. Do not wait. The technology is moving fast. Get on the train. If you don't know robots, go find a local university, take a class, talk to a grad student. There's numerous ways to get involved. There's no excuse, actually. There's no excuse to not do it. So if you have an organization that thinks it needs help, start that process today. Things that take long time, well, you better get started, because if you don't start, you won't get to the end line. So I always try to we bring in middle schoolers to our lab,
Yeah.
and anybody, and we give them the robot controls. Here, do it. You do it once, you will never look back. So that's my message. Do not be intimidated. These things are all easy to learn. So just go for it.
I love that very much. So with the sentiments of leaning in, lean into the technology, lean into the collaboration. If you're working within an organization, share budget, like put an equal stake in, 1% each, and collaborate together and win that board approval and show why robotics, automation, AI, supply chain is the route forward for your organization. And there's some great examples of that today. Please join me in thanking both Tim and Amolak. Our time has flown. Thank you all for being a wonderful audience. Thank you.